Module 4, Nonverbal Codes and Cultural Space. Team members include Timothy Cook, LaShondra Cooks, Kristen Curry, Shannon Ellington, Carmel Lewis, and Josh Embry. Basics of Nonverbal Codes. Kinesics, the interpretation of body motion communications such as facial expressions and gestures, aka body language. Most people are unaware of the body language they convey when communicating. Body language means more to people than words. Examples of nonverbal codes. Crossing your eyes, the tone in your voice, facial expressions, crying, smiling, and frowning, hand gestures, such as waving and pointing, avoiding eye contact, and walking away are all examples of nonverbal codes. What nonverbal behavior communicates? Nonverbal behavior communicates relational messages on how the speaker wants to be viewed by the audience. It can also communicate status and whether or not the speaker is truthful or using deception. Relational messages. Messages that communicate how we feel about others. Status. How you are viewed in the group or society. Broad expansion gestures indicate high statuses, whereas tight closed body language usually means lower statuses. Deception. When a speaker tries to be deceptive, they exhibit behavior which includes avoiding eye contact and touching or rubbing their face. Nonverbal behavior varies from culture to culture. Studies have shown that there is some universality across cultures in the nonverbal communication form of facial expressions. Recent studies have shown that at least 6 emotions are displayed through similar facial expressions in most societies, including sadness, happiness, disgust, fear, anger, and surprise. Although there is similarity in nonverbal communication among the cultures, there are variations in differing evoking stimuli. Facial expressions is defined as facial gestures that convey emotions and attitudes. Evoking stimuli is defined as what causes nonverbal communication. Unlike facial expressions, the norms for personal space vary drastically from culture to culture. There are 2 types, contact cultures and non-contact cultures. Cultural groups in contact cultures tend to stand close to each other and touch frequently when they interact. Examples are South America and the Middle East. Non-contact cultures are where people tend to maintain more space and touch less often than that of contact cultures. Examples are Great Britain and Japan. Personal space not only varies from culture to culture, but also on the age and sex of people in our own culture. On average, Americans feel most comfortable in a bubble with about 18 to 48 inches away from other people. This is our comfort zone. We can get very nervous and uncomfortable when invaded depending on the age and sex of the person. Adults and their personal space. It is more uncomfortable for the person of the opposite sex to invade your space. Women stand closer to each other, face each other more, and touch more than men do. Although we tolerate our bubble being invaded, our body shows signs of flight or fight mode. Children and personal space. Children have no spatial awareness. They do not care about a personal bubble. They get right in your face, lean on you, and are almost always nose to nose talking to you. As adults, we are more comfortable with this than we would be with another adult. They are smaller and extremely less intimidating. Gestures, a way of communicating with both your hands or body without words, vary greatly from culture to culture. U.S. gestures include waving goodbye, the good luck sign, and the OK sign. Other interpretations, come here, boyfriend, money, sex, and homosexual. Basics of cultural space. Consists of places that are meaningful to each and every person. Each place holds a certain rank in a person's mind. It also defines a person's value and what's most important to that person in life. Examples of cultural space. Where you work, where you hang out with friends, where you live, where you choose to go on vacation, and anywhere that has any meaning to you is a cultural space that defines you. Paralinguistics, vocal behaviors. Vocal qualities, aka the music of the human voice, include speed, pitch, rhythm, vocal range, and articulation. We tend not to notice these paralinguistic features unless someone articulates very precisely or very imprecisely. Vocalization, the sounds we utter. Vocal cues. Our vocal cues consist of laughing, crying, and whining and moaning. Do fillers count? Vocal cues are also sound we use as fillers, such as ah, and even Tarzan's yell is a vocal cue. But I'll save you that trouble. Silence, the unspoken language. Silence varies within different cultural groups. In most Asian cultures, silence is revered as a sign of respect. As compared to Western civilization, silence is a sign of agreeance. In comparison to Asian cultures, Western civilizations take silence as being rude and impolite or lack of care or concern. Stereotype, prejudice, and discrimination. Prejudice, based off nonverbal aspects of behavior, triggered by behavior and appearance, and it leads to discrimination. Discrimination, based on race, gender, nonverbal behavior, lack of eye contact, exclusion from economic opportunities, and physical violence. Interpersonal, collective, and institutional. Semiotic and nonverbal communication. Semiotic, analysis of the relationship between two signs, signifiers, and signified. Signifiers, cultural words used to refer to something. Signified, anything that is expressed. Semiotics help us decode other cultures. Semiotic systems rely on codes taken from religion, economic institutions, history, and politics. Body language context. Body language is a nonverbal code that is used in social or cultural context to send a nonverbal message. Codification is used to send nonverbal codes that is understood by the receiver, to reinforce a verbal message and to establish relationships. Body language content. Body language is a nonverbal code that is used in social and cultural content to send a nonverbal message. The internet is a metaphorical for cultural space, self-presentation, presenting oneself to another through nonverbal attributes like appearance. Examples of body language. In Saudi Arabia, cultural space is consistent through the country and it varies between gender. It is a cultural gesture for females and males who are heterosexual friends to hug and show more affection to the same-sex friends than the opposite. In Japan, people bow as a sign of respect. The other person always bows in return as a sign of their gratitude and to return their respect. Examples of body language. In Brazil, the elderly and mothers with children are respected highly. If you are at a government office, movies, or in the supermarket, it is a nonverbal response to allow the elderly or mother with children to go ahead of you. In Brazil, men greet and say goodbye shaking hands and sometimes giving a slight slap on the back. Women shake hands and exchange air kisses near the cheek. Imaginary boundaries. A visible boundary that is surrounded by invisible boundaries. Territory that varies from culture to culture. The distance between relationships that people have between people. An important characteristic of architectural space is a man's involvement in its generation and its partaking of the life in it. Conclusion. Intercultural transitions, space and race. The ethics of community-based research, hidden histories, identity formation, language, and cultural representations where many cultural space and nonverbal communication exist.